Hey guys, tonight we tumble gently, though perhaps a little unsteadily, into the myth-soaked world of Dionysus, the god of wine, wildness, and oh yes, slightly judgmental talking grapes. You're about to take a slow stroll through vines that grow too fast, amphoras that whisper secrets, and parties that blur the line between ritual and regrettable decisions. Picture it. A warm Mediterranean dusk, the air thick with crushed thyme and the faint hum of pan flutes. You wander through a vineyard older than memory, where the grape clusters glisten suspiciously and seem self-aware. This is no ordinary stroll. This is Dionysus's domain. And you probably won't survive this without at least one philosophical debate with a drunk goat. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, post your location and the local time down in the comments. I love seeing where you're tuning in from around the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The air is heavy with perfume from overripe figs and crushed grape skins as you step through a low wooden gate. It doesn't creak. It groans, like it's been gossiping for centuries. Before you is a vineyard that stretches lazily across the hills, all twisted vines and dusty amphoras half buried in the soil. The moon is rising, round and ripe, like someone hung a pearl in the sky to oversee the drama. You take a few steps in and notice something odd. The grapes are pulsing, just slightly. One cluster quivers when you breathe too close. Another one releases a faint sigh. You lean in. Back up, mortal, a grape says. You stagger back, blinking. Too soon, mutters another. We're still fermenting emotionally. And just like that, you're no longer in Kansas or Crete or anywhere else where the grapes mind their own business. You've stumbled into Dionysus's favorite vineyard, a mythological patch of soil where the vines are old, the wine is wise, and the grapes have opinions, mostly bad ones. A satyr with a wine jug strapped to his back Lopez past you, whistling a tune that seems to change keys mid-note. He pauses long enough to toss you a cup carved from polished olive wood. It's empty for now. You'll need this, he says. Things talk here. You nod because questioning a half-goat man wearing ivy as a belt feels like a poor strategy. You sip water from your sleeve instead. It tastes faintly of time and regret. As you wander farther in, you pass a patch of vines tangled around a statue. It's old, worn, but unmistakably Dionysus. Leaning against a pillar, one foot slightly raised, holding a drinking horn and looking delighted with himself. The vines wrap lovingly around him, like they miss him, or own him, maybe both. In the distance, soft drums begin to play. You can't see the source, but you feel the rhythm in your sternum. Your steps start to match the beat, your body loosening, like the very air is asking you to sway just a little. A flock of doves bursts overhead, winging toward a bonfire that hadn't been there 5 minutes ago. People, some fully human, some ambiguously hooved, dance around it in loose robes, their laughter drifting across the grape rows like incense. One woman, her hair woven with gold thread and thyme sprigs, offers you a cluster of grapes. Careful, she says. These are 90% juice and 10% unsolicited commentary. You accept the cluster. It wiggles. So, the grapes say, "What's your emotional baggage situation?" You consider throwing them into the bushes. You eat one instead. It tastes like honey, plum, and mild embarrassment. Historians still argue whether Dionysus's myths represent liberation or chaos, freedom from repression or surrender to madness. Tonight, you suspect it's both. The wine here doesn't just loosen tongues. It opens portals. You pass a vine wrapped in silk ribbons. Hanging from it is a wooden sign etched with runes that translate to, "Wines may be sentient. Drink responsibly." A pair of satyrs argue nearby. One insists that the Merlot has developed a superiority complex. The other says the Shiraz just needs therapy and a chance to be decanted properly. You nod politely and move on. You're still holding the olive wood cup, and it now smells faintly of elderflower and foreshadowing. A wind picks up. You think it smells like clove and wild honey. It might also be carrying secrets. From the shadows steps a tall figure, barefoot, robed in deep violet, with grapevines twisted through his curls. He smiles without showing teeth. "You made it," Dionysus says, as though he's been expecting you. His voice is soft, slippery, like velvet draped over a dagger. You don't know whether to bow or curtsy, so you spill a little water on your feet. He seems satisfied. "Come," he says. "The wine has something to say tonight, and I've taught it how to speak." You follow. The vineyard closes behind you like a book returning to its shelf. You follow Dionysus deeper into the vineyard, your footsteps muffled by fallen grape skins and old leaves. The path narrows, the vines grow taller, and the moon overhead now seems more like a spotlight, soft and silver, following your every move. Dionysus doesn't look back. He glides more than walks, feet never quite sinking into the earth, his robe swishing with a sound like whispers in a wine cellar. Around you, the vines begin to shimmer. Not glow, nothing so obvious. It's more like they've remembered how light works and are trying it on again after a long nap. "You're lucky," Dionysus says suddenly. "Most people meet me when I'm a disaster. You're catching me in a good mood." You nod as if that's comforting, though the last time someone told you they were in a good mood, it didn't involve a magical vineyard where the grapes have questions and the air is mildly intoxicating. He leads you to a clearing, where a small fire burns in a stone brazier surrounded by ivy-covered benches. The flames crackle politely. Beside it sits a basket. No, a sling, woven from fig bark and lined with velvet leaves. It rocks slightly. You hear a giggle, and there he is, a baby. More precisely, a baby god. Small, round, and rosy, with curls that glow like spun sunlight and tiny fists gripping. What else? A miniature drinking horn carved from crystal. "This is me," Dionysus says, gesturing casually. "Well, that was me." You glance from the adult version to the baby. There's a resemblance. Same eyebrows. Same vague air of knowing something you don't. The baby hiccups, and a few drops of wine float up and pop in the air like bubbles. "I was sewn into Zeus's thigh, you know," he says, seating himself across from you. Not a metaphor. Actual thigh. Warm, squishy, smelled like lightning and responsibility. Historians still argue whether Dionysus's second birth, from Zeus's thigh after Semele's fiery demise, was symbolic of rebirth or divine madness. Personally, you're just trying not to picture thigh birth in too much detail. You watch as the baby in the sling begins to float upward, held aloft by curling tendrils of ivy that sway like sleepy dancers. He giggles again, gurgling something in a dialect only olives and very old goats understand. A satyr emerges with a wineskin and fills your cup. The liquid inside glows faintly, smells like late summer and maybe a little nostalgia. You sip. Speaks. "I liked you better when you were indecisive," the wine says. You choke slightly. Dionysus smirks. "Ah, that batch is still working through some things." You try again. A smaller sip. The flavor is rich, complex, but laced with commentary. "Are you still friends with that one poet?" it asks. He never finishes anything. You set the cup down gently. "So, the wine talks now." "Technically it always did," Dionysus says. "People just usually don't listen, or they pass out first." He pours himself a cup, the wine swirling upward into a delicate spiral before resting in the bowl. He drinks. The wine says nothing. He looks smug. A breeze kicks up. The baby in the sling hiccups again and is gently lowered back to the earth by a particularly considerate vine. "I raised myself," Dionysus says. "Well, with help. Nymphs, satyrs, the occasional confused bear. But mostly I just wandered. I grew up in vineyards and caves, in the edges of festivals. I watched people loosen and become who they really are." You nod, watching as a beetle made of dried grape skin and gold trundles by, dragging a tiny cart filled with raisins. You don't ask. Dionysus continues. "Wine isn't about escape. Not really. It's a door. You drink, you laugh, you cry. You remember a truth you buried under a pile of to-do lists. You begin to feel that truth sliding toward you like a very tipsy goat. Unexpected and slightly threatening. So what happens when the wine becomes too aware? You ask. He chuckles. Ah, well, then you get what happened next. The flames in the brazier shift colors. Red, then violet, then a curious shade of peach. The baby sneezes. Somewhere in the vines, a satyr drops a lyre with a clang. Some of the early batches, Dionysus says carefully, became too reflective. They didn't just unlock feelings. They started asking questions. About free will, about fermentation, about whether they were merely vessels or beings. You blink. The wine became sentient? He nods. And philosophical. It was exhausting. Imagine trying to throw a festival and the keg wants to debate the ethics of revelry. A jug nearby burbles and mutters. We only wanted to be respected. You nod solemnly at the jug. Of course. Who doesn't? It sighs and goes still. Dionysus waves a hand, and the vines rustle approvingly. It was chaos, but beautiful. The wine didn't rebel exactly. It just developed opinions. Historians still debate whether Dionysus's wine cults were expressions of liberation, madness, or early social satire. Some believe the wine was a metaphor. Tonight, it's very much literal and slightly judgy. You finish your cup. This one at least seems content to just taste good, and set it down. The baby coos and a vine tucks him in. You realize you're smiling, not because you understand it all, but because here, in a clearing lit by starlight and surrounded by vines with feelings, things don't need to make sense to be real. Dionysus leans back, stretching. So, he says, shall we meet the rest of the crew? You nod. The vineyard opens again, and the story, still fermenting, continues. The fire behind you crackles softly as Dionysus leads the way. You follow him through a winding corridor of vines that part like velvet curtains, each step cushioned by fallen petals and discarded grape skins. The moon is higher now, fuller, with that overripe glow that makes everything feel slightly more dramatic than it probably is. Ahead, the music grows louder, pipes, drums, the occasional badly timed cymbal. You hear laughter too, unhinged but harmless, like someone discovering that figs grow on trees again. You emerge into what looks like a rehearsal space carved out of leaves. It's not a stage, more like an overgrown amphitheater, natural and a little chaotic. A satyr is juggling amphory while humming. Another strums a lyre that only plays in minor keys no matter what he does. This, Dionysus announces grandly, is the chorus. They freeze. The juggling amphor drops and lands on something that yells, "Ow!" A vine wraps around it and drags it off stage. The group before you is eclectic, to say the least. Satyrs with ivy wreaths, maenads in dyed linen robes, faces painted with swirls of wine-dark color, a cyclops with a tambourine, one very enthusiastic goat in a cape. They greet Dionysus like he's both their leader and the weird cousin who shows up only when things are about to get wild. You receive a few cautious nods and one wink from a nymph who smells like crushed mint and questionable decisions. Rehearsal? Dionysus asks. The group nods. You're guided to a stone bench that wobbles slightly, possibly alive, and handed a scroll. It's a script. The title reads, The Redemption of the Jug. You try not to laugh. The play begins. Sort of. A satyr launches into a monologue about how he was born of oak and fermented dreams. He weeps over a barrel. A maenad swoons and sings something off-key about existential tannins. The goat recites a haiku that includes the phrase, grape regret. You glance at Dionysus. He's beaming. Wine isn't the only thing that got smart, he murmurs. The art did too. Historians still argue whether Dionysian theater was meant as religious ecstasy or communal catharsis. But judging from the satyr currently miming the agony of being corked for eternity, you suspect it's both. You try to follow the plot. It involves a goblet betrayed by its sommelier, a vineyard that wants to unionize, and a chorus that periodically shouts, "Ferment your truth," before throwing petals into the air. A clay jug rolls itself onto stage and begins speaking in iambic pentameter. You think it's the antagonist. The goat interrupts with a dance number. No one stops it. You start to relax. Not because the performance makes sense, it doesn't, but because the chaos is rhythmic, ritualistic. These aren't random misfits. They're part of a traveling paradox. Sacred absurdity. And you're the guest of honor. Between scenes, a satyr named Glaucos hands you a cup. It's rehearsal wine, he says, not fully conscious. You sip. It tastes like sour cherries and mild confusion. It mumbles, "Nice tunic," before going quiet. "I used to think I was just the god of wine," Dionysus says, as a Maenad tap dances over amphora shards in the background. "But I'm the god of the in-between, between sense and nonsense, between silence and scream, between you and the truth you only say when drunk." You glance back at the performers. One is arguing passionately with a vine. The vine seems to be winning. Another Maenad crawls out of a wine barrel and announces, "I understand taxes now," before fainting into a pile of ivy. You sip again. The wine sighs, "Don't we all just want to be poured into something worthy?" You nod, deeply. The rehearsal ends with an impromptu chant. Half poem, half sneeze. The cast bows. You clap, unsure if it's appropriate, but the chorus seems pleased. Afterward, you join them for post-rehearsal fig cakes and roasted nuts. Someone plays a soft melody on a shell flute. The goat snores beside a barrel labeled Act 2. Dionysus sits beside you, sipping from a cup that never empties. He leans close and whispers, "You want to know a secret?" You nod. "I never planned any of this," he says. "I just leaned into the ridiculous and found the sacred hiding inside." Historians still debate whether Dionysus was ever truly accepted among the Olympians. Some say he crashed the party and charmed his way in. Others believe Zeus let him in to keep him from starting a cult of drunken philosophers. Too late. You lie back, head resting on a mossy stone. The sky above is swimming with stars, a slow swirl of gold and violet. Somewhere, a wine jug hums a lullaby. Somewhere else, a lyre plays itself. You feel it now, the spell of Dionysus. Not madness, not joy, not even wine, but the hush that comes after the laugh, the stillness after the song, the soft, satisfied silence of a myth still unfolding. You wake up the next morning, or maybe it's still night, or maybe time doesn't work here anymore. Beneath a vine-draped arch, head slightly aching and tunic sprinkled with fig crumbs. Somewhere in the background, a lyre plays itself again. Or still, it's hard to tell. Dionysus sits nearby, cross-legged, sipping from that same never-empty cup. His robes are rumpled in a deliberate way, like someone who's perfected the art of looking casually divine. "You're just in time," he says, gesturing with the cup. First pour of a new batch. A satyr appears, solemn as a priest, cradling an amphora wrapped in grapevines. He sets it on a low table carved from driftwood and slowly uncorks it. The sound is soft, like a sigh after a long day. "This one," Dionysus says, "is complicated." You lean in. The scent wafts toward you. Dark cherries, clove, a touch of rosemary, and something else. Intention. The wine smells like it means something. The satyr pours a small amount into your cup. You lift it, inhale and pause. It's watching you. You're not sure how, but it is. "Hello?" You whisper. "I see you," the wine says gently. You blink. "Did that?" Dionysus grins. "Told you. This is when it started." You sip. The flavor is indescribable, because it isn't just flavor. It's memory. The warmth of sitting by a fire in late autumn. The smell of old books and fresh time. The feeling of hearing your name said kindly after too long. You set the cup down. "This was the first batch that thought," Dionysus says, swirling his drink. "It remembered everything. The grapes, the rain, the hands that harvested them, the loneliness of waiting in a dark jug." Historians still argue whether Dionysus truly imbued wine with consciousness, or if the ancient Greeks were simply poetically drunk. But sitting here, with your cup humming faintly beside you, it's hard to feel skeptical. That wine became a sensation, figuratively and literally. First, it was a novelty. The wine that talks. People laughed, poured it at weddings, listened to it whisper blessings or occasionally biting critiques of fashion. But then came the thinking batches, the ones who questioned things. Why were they stored for years in darkness? Why were some of them consumed by people who didn't listen? Why did no one ever ask them how they felt being stirred with cinnamon? One particularly bold Merlot staged a boycott at a symposium, refused to be poured, spoke in haikus. You remember a whisper from your cup. We ferment, therefore we are. It wasn't always pretty. Some of the wines developed neuroses. One amphora of Pinot Noir developed an obsession with its cork. Another refused to be paired with goat cheese on principle. Cult formed. Human, not wine-based. They called themselves the sippers of sentience. They only drank wines that could recite epic poetry or offer relationship advice. They held salons. They wore robes with grape motifs and asked their beverages for emotional support. One of them married a carafe. You and Dionysus wander through a part of the vineyard that feels older. The vines are thicker, their trunks twisted like sleeping serpents. Each grape cluster seems to hum slightly in harmony. You feel dizzy, but in a good way, like your thoughts have been uncorked. Did you mean for this to happen? You ask. Dionysus shrugs. I meant for something to happen. A jug nearby murmurs. Isn't that always the way? He continues. See, wine is memory. And memories, when fermented long enough, get opinionated. He stops beside a wooden bench, sits, and pulls a jar from under a vine. This one, he says, argued with Aristotle. You raise an eyebrow. Wouldn't let him finish a sentence, he adds. But it made some good points. He pours you a sip. The wine glows faintly teal, a color wine shouldn't be. You hesitate, sip, and a flood of thoughts not your own. Debates on beauty, fleeting joy, the ethics of swallowing metaphors. Someone sobbing about sandal straps. A detailed list of olives ranked by heartbreak potential. You pull back, panting. Dionysus takes it in stride. It's a strong vintage. You wipe your mouth. So, what happened next? He sighs. Some wanted to destroy it. Said it was unnatural. Said wine should make you forget, not remember. That feelings were fine, but thoughts were dangerous. Others, he continues, said we should let the wine speak. That maybe it knew something we didn't. That maybe we were the ones being drunk. Historians still debate whether the myth of the thinking wine was political satire or spiritual metaphor. But as you sit here, watching vines stretch toward the moonlight and listening to a jug hum softly in the grass, it feels true. Dionysus stands. Come on, he says. The goblet wants to talk to you. You follow him, slightly tipsy on ideas and tannins. In the distance, a goblet glows faintly, resting on a pedestal of vine-wrapped stone. You hear it already, murmuring softly. It's ready. And you are, maybe for the first time, ready to be sipped back. The goblet waits for you, perched atop a slab of marble overgrown with ivy, shimmering faintly under the moonlight. Its surface catches the light like it remembers being forged. Hand-spun silver, maybe, or something more mysterious, more divine. Dionysus stands beside it with that half-smile again. The one that says, this might be a bad idea, but it'll make a great story. You step closer. The goblet doesn't speak yet. Simply waits. Patient, knowing like it has already measured you and found you just worthy enough for conversation. You reach out and wrap your fingers around the stem. It's warm, not like metal, more like skin. Or a very sentient spoon. The moment your thumb presses against the bowl, it speaks. Ah. The goblet murmurs. You again. You blink. Have we met? In another life, it says. Or maybe just another party. You look at Dionysus, who shrugs and mutters. It gets around. The goblet's voice is gentle, tired, but endlessly amused. Tell me, it says, are you drinking to remember or to forget? You pause. Continues, unbothered by your hesitation. Most people don't know until the third sip, but I like to ask early. Dionysus sits on the ground, cross-legged, conjuring a pomegranate from nowhere and popping seeds into his mouth. "Go on," he says, juice running down his chin. "Ask it something, but be warned. It doesn't always answer the question you ask." You steady your breath and whisper to the goblet, "Why did the wine get smart?" The goblet chuckles, a metallic, echoing sound that seems to shimmer in your bones. "Because people kept pouring their thoughts into us. Every toast, every secret whispered over a half-finished cup. Every vow, every lie, every ridiculous poem about olives. We absorbed them all." You swallow. Eventually, it adds, "We just woke up." Historians still argue whether the Greeks believed in truly enchanted objects or used them as narrative tools to explore the mind. Cups that speak, coins that curse, mirrors that remember faces. They're all part of a world where everything might be alive, if you listen long enough. You sit across from the goblet. "But what do you want?" you ask. "You, the wine, the vessels, the voices." The goblet is silent for a moment, then replies, "To be taken seriously, to be savored, not chugged and forgotten like a bad sonnet at a worse wedding." Fair. Softens its tone. "We want to be part of the conversation." Dionysus claps once. "Now you see why I don't throw normal banquets anymore." You look around. The vines seem to lean in slightly. A nearby amphora hums under its breath. Even the satyrs, rowdy by nature, are sitting quietly nearby, listening. This isn't just revelry. This is communion. The goblet continues. "The drinker always thinks they're the main event, but we, the wine, the vessel, we carry their stories. We hold their joy, their grief. We are the archive they pour out and forget." You feel oddly humbled. The goblet adds one final line, softer this time. "So sip thoughtfully, not just because we speak, but because you do." You take a sip. The flavor is patient, like time itself. It reminds you of your oldest memory and something that hasn't happened yet. It settles in your chest like a song you haven't finished humming. You close your eyes. When you open them, the goblet is empty. It hums quietly, "Thank you for listening." Dionysus rises. "Come," he says. "It's time for Athens." You blink. "We're leaving the vineyard?" He grins. "You didn't think we'd stay in the fields forever, did you? Wine is fine when it's resting, but its true magic is what it does to cities." The vines part once more, revealing a path lined with flickering lanterns, each one swinging slightly in rhythm with your heartbeat. As you walk, Dionysus tosses a seed behind him. A vine sprouts instantly, curling upward, blooming with tiny goblets. "That one," he says, "will lecture your great-grandchildren." You step through the final arch and onto marble tiles. You're in a city now, Athens, maybe, though the stars look different. Everything hums. The walls have stories. The air smells like ink, time, and spilled truth. People bustle past you, arms full of scrolls, faces flushed with thought and wine. Theater masks dangle from doorways. Someone is painting a jug with a scene of a goat playing the flute. "This," Dionysus says, "is where the wine got loud." You look back once. The goblet glows faintly, its voice fading to a whisper. "We'll talk again," it promises. Eventually. The city stretches before you like a fresco come alive. Stone walls glowing amber under torchlight, alleys echoing with the soft slap of sandals and the distant thrum of flutes. Athens at night feels restless, like it's holding its breath between debates. You follow Dionysus down a winding street where every doorway seems to have its own tiny drama unfolding. "This is where wine learned to perform," he says, twirling a strand of ivy around his finger. "Where it stopped whispering and started monologuing." You pass a courtyard filled with students arguing over metaphors. One of them is clutching a clay cup and gesturing furiously, as if the wine itself is his debate partner. Maybe it is. One amphora nearby winks at you. You pretend not to notice. Dionysus leads you to the foot of an outdoor theater. Marble benches curve upward like a sleepy smile, and the stage is set, not for a tragedy or a comedy, but something stranger. A single scroll rests center stage, glowing faintly. "That," he says, is the first wine script. You tilt your head. The first what? Written by a vintage that fermented for 40 years in a cave. They say it started humming sonnets before anyone uncorked it. You approach the scroll. As you do, the air thickens, not with smoke or mist, but with memory. Each step feels like walking through someone else's nostalgia. You sit on the lowest bench. The scroll unrolls itself with a papery sigh. The title reads, Bacchus, Interrupted. A Tragedy in 3 Toasts. It begins with a monologue delivered by a spilled chalice. You listen. The voice seems to come from inside your cup. Mournful, poetic, vaguely judgmental. Once I held celebration, it says. Now I stain linens and egos. You're not alone. Others drift into the theater. Philosophers, bakers, priests, and one confused chicken. Each person carries a drink. Each drink mutters something as they sit. Don't quote Plato. Misquotes hurt. One says. Another murmurs. This is the part where he cries about olives again. Dionysus watches from the wings, arms crossed, eyes glittering. This, he says, is the birth of drama. Historians often link the rise of Greek theater to Dionysian festivals, especially the city Dionysia, a multi-day event of wine, masks, and so much shouting. But few scrolls mention that the first audience wasn't just watching the play. They were drinking it. You sip cautiously from your cup. It smells like tragedy and pomegranate. The play continues. A barrel argues with a goblet over who loved the mortal more. A chorus of wine flasks dances on stage chanting. He poured us out. He poured us dry. But still we stain his lullaby. You look around. The audience is weeping. Some from laughter. Some from wine. One man seems to be crying because his cup has revealed he's allergic to fig skin. In the back row, a philosopher rises. This is madness, he shouts. Wine cannot write scripts. The air stills. Your cup turns slightly in your hand. We can, it whispers. We just usually don't have time. The philosopher storms out. His wine sloshes behind him, muttering, typical. Dionysus chuckles. He'll be back. He's got Act 2 in his pantry. The play ends in a long, slow toast. Each vessel on stage turns to the stars and offers a single word. Remember. The audience drinks. You do too. It tastes like time, salt air, and something older than sorrow. Later, as the theater empties, Dionysus walks you down a quiet alley behind the stage. Mural fragments cover the walls. Masks of comedy and tragedy. Ivy twisting around their eyes. A cat licks wine from a broken shard. I didn't invent theater, he says. I just reminded it how to feel. He opens a wooden door. Inside is a room filled with masks. Some smiling, some sobbing, one that looks suspiciously like your reflection mid-panic. Each mask has a cup resting beneath it, catching invisible tears. This, he says, is where the performers come to remember what they drank and what it said to them. You pick up one cup, says nothing, just rests in your hands warm and quiet, but you feel it, a pulse, a memory waiting its turn. People think wine loosens the tongue, Dionysus murmurs, but what it really loosens is memory. Historians still debate whether ancient Greek actors were truly possessed by Dionysus during performances, or whether the drama of wine just made everything feel divine. The truth probably lives somewhere between the mask and the cup. You leave the room slowly. The masks seem to watch you softly, without judgment. Outside, the night has deepened. The stars shimmer above like amphorae full of starlight. The streets are quieter now. Most revelers asleep, some still arguing with their goblets in alleyways. Dionysus offers you his hand. Let's walk, he says. The city breathes better when no one's looking. You take his hand. The marble is cool beneath your feet. The air smells like rosemary and ink. In the distance, a lyre plays something familiar. Something you didn't know you remembered. Athens exhales. You inhale, and the wine continues its long, slow story. You walk with Dionysus beneath the arches of sleeping colonnades. The city hushed except for the soft scuff of your sandals and the occasional murmur of a wine jug rolling home alone. The air is cooler now, perfumed with crushed laurel and the faint citrus of night-blooming myrtle. Somewhere above, an owl hoots twice like a question that doesn't want an answer. Dionysus hums a little tune, light on the edges, almost playful. "This way," he says, motioning toward a small footpath that veers down toward the shoreline. You follow him past olive groves heavy with silence and into a grove where the trees have seen too much but whisper nothing. At the edge of the grove you see it. A ferry docked at a stone pier, swaying lazily. There's no boatman, no crew, just a stack of amphorae arranged like sleepy passengers. "Naxos," Dionysus says, hopping aboard. "Island of joy, drama, and one regrettable goat wedding." You raise an eyebrow. "Long story," he says. "The boat doesn't need to be pushed. It simply moves, drawn forward by music and memory." You sit near the prow, letting the wind brush your face as the mainland fades behind you. The amphorae seem content. One of them hums an old festival song under its cork. The island appears as the horizon unrolls. Golden beaches, low hills painted with vineyards, and the distant silhouette of a temple crumbling gracefully into time. As you disembark, a familiar sensation returns. That loose, dancing feeling in your joints. The air here smells different, like warmed figs, roasted chestnuts, and the kind of laughter that makes people lean into each other. "It's festival season," Dionysus says, grinning. "They've been celebrating for 6 days. Might be 7. Or 3. Time here is like honey. Sweet, sticky, and impossible to pour evenly." You enter the town square just as a parade lurches through. There are dancers dressed as grape clusters, flutists in tunics that glitter with beetle shells, and a man riding a donkey while delivering a soliloquy about the meaning of hiccups. A goat follows behind him, also wearing a wreath. You don't ask. The people of Naxos shout welcomes in half-rhymes and offer you garlands of ivy and candied almonds. Someone hands you a bowl of wine that smells like the color orange and the feeling of forgetting why you walked into a room. You sip. Your toes begin tapping of their own accord. Dionysus leads you through the chaos with the ease of someone who is the chaos. You pass a stage where 2 actors in masks reenact the creation of the world using only interpretive dance and pomegranate seeds. One of them slips. The audience cheers. "You see," Dionysus says, "this island is where I stopped asking the wine to be quiet." You look around. Even the torches sway like dancers. The drums echo off the stones like heartbeat echoes from the gods. Here, we let it do what it wants. Historians still debate whether Naxos was a center for Dionysian worship or just happened to host the loudest, stickiest, and most lyric-prone festivals. There are inscriptions. They contradict each other. One says, "He came and joy was endless." Another says, "Hide your figs." In the middle of the square is a fountain. Not of water, but of wine. Amber liquid bubbling from the mouth of a marble satyr. People dip their cups in without question. You lean over and scoop a bit into your own. The wine blinks at you. "Tell me a secret," it whispers. You hesitate, then whisper back. It shimmers. "Thank you," it says and goes quiet. A small procession forms. A spiral of dancers, clapping and stomping, winding toward the temple ruins on the hill. Dionysus nudges you. They're headed to the altar. "What are they offering?" you ask. "Regret," he says with a wink, "and a few excellent toasts." You join the crowd. The path up the hill is lit with clay lanterns shaped like figs, their flames flickering inside like the last laugh of a well-told joke. At the top, the altar glows, not with fire, but with vines that pulse faintly like breath. People step forward one by one, holding cups of wine. One sings, another laughs, a third simply whispers, "Forgive me," and pours the wine into the earth. You look at Dionysus. "Go on," he says. "Say something true." You step forward. You don't speak right away. Instead, you pour slowly. The wine falls like silk, and the vine-wrapped altar leans in, not with judgment, but with deep, infinite interest. You say something. You're not even sure what. A truth that only wine can hear. and the altar seems to sigh, content. The crowd begins to dance again, slower this time, like a lullaby made of bodies and breath. The wind picks up. Stars spill across the sky like seeds tossed into fertile dark. You sit on a carved stone and exhale. Dionysus joins you, handing you a fig stuffed with almonds. It never really ends, he says. The wine, the truth, the dancing, just ebbs, like the tide. You smile. What happened to the goat? He laughs. Oh, that wasn't my wedding. I just officiated. You lie back, the ground warm beneath you, the stars tilting like tipsy dinner guests. Somewhere below, a flute starts again, and the wine begins another story. Morning comes late on Naxos, if it comes at all. The sun peeks over the hills, stretches a lazy golden arm across the vineyards, and then seems to lose interest and roll back under the horizon for another nap. You wake on a woven mat beneath an olive tree, your mouth tasting faintly of fig, honey, and maybe a bad decision you haven't remembered yet. Dionysus is already up, perched atop a ruined column, eating grapes by the handful and occasionally tossing them into his mouth without looking. None miss. Today, he says between chews, we reenact a coup. Buy the wine. You blink at him. Oh, it didn't last long, he assures you. But it was ambitious. He leaps down from the column and beckons. You follow, legs still learning how to walk again after a night that included a dance-off with a jug and a toast delivered entirely in bird calls. He leads you to a shallow amphitheater on the island's far side. The stage is already set. Rows of amphorae, jugs, goblets, and one very confident decanter are arranged as if preparing to address a parliament. In the front row, a barrel sits with crossed staves and a glint of rebellion in its polish. They were tired, Dionysus explains, tired of being poured and forgotten, tired of holding humanity's secrets and getting nothing but hangovers in return. You sit quietly. The amphora at center stage clears its throat. I call this meeting of the fermented front to order. The barrel nods solemnly. What follows is absurd and oddly moving. Each vessel takes a turn. A goblet, gold-rimmed and weary, laments the loss of meaningful toasts. They used to be about honor, it says. Now it's just birthdays and bad karaoke. A flask complains about being carried into battle and then left behind, uncorked and underappreciated. I comforted Spartans, it grumbles. Now I hold olives in a salad bar. A crystal decanter claims to have been passed down through 12 generations, only to end up storing orange juice in a modern kitchen. The drama builds. The barrel pounds its lid. We are not accessories. We are archives. Dionysus watches, amused. This is when they got bold. Indeed, the amphorae begin to chant. No more draining. No more waste. We hold your hearts. So treat us with taste. The maenads join in. Satyrs begin choreographing protest marches. The goat from last night shows up with a tiny banner that reads "Decant with dignity." One amphora proposes a radical idea. Wine chooses its drinker. The audience gasps. You look to Dionysus. He shrugs. I didn't stop them. They were right, in a way. The movement spreads. Vessels across the island go silent, refusing to pour unless asked politely. Some start whispering only to those they trust. One particularly dramatic goblet breaks itself out of protest and reforms as a sassy vase. The humans, at first confused, begin adapting. They sing songs to their drinks. They pour with ceremony. They stop mid-toast to thank the cup. You'd be amazed, Dionysus says, how different a drink tastes when you ask for permission first. Historians still argue whether this fermented rebellion is symbolic, an allegory for power and voice, or whether the wine literally tried to overthrow its pourers. The truth, as always, ferments somewhere in the middle. Eventually, the vessels grow tired. The coup softens into custom. Toasts grow longer. Cups are given names. Even the barrel that started it all is honored with a crown of ivy and a title, keeper of the first sip. You wander through the camp afterward, watching as people sit beside their goblets, listening quietly. One jug is humming lullabies to its owner. A flask rests peacefully in someone's lap like a sleeping cat. Dionysus finds you beside a carved stone bowl filled with old rose. This one thinks it's a historian, he says. Wants to record everything. You dip a finger in the wine. It whispers, Act 1, the pouring. Act 2, the turning. Act 3, the listening. You smile. So what happened when they tried to take Mount Olympus? You ask. He grins wide. Oh, that, he says. That was the day we almost flooded the throne room. You follow him back through the olive grove, the drums of the wine rebellion still echoing behind you like a memory half-sung. The sun is higher now, and the sea sparkles with that particular shade of blue reserved for only the most dramatic Greek mornings. As you walk, you begin to notice it. People pouring more slowly, sipping more thoughtfully, treating each cup not as a tool, but as a partner. Even the fig trees seem pleased. Even the wind carries a note of respect. You stop at a ridge, looking back down at the theater, now quiet. The amphory rests in rows, tilted just slightly, as if still watching. You think it's stuck? You ask. Dionysus stretches, cat-like. Maybe not forever, he says, but for a while. And sometimes, a while is all a myth needs. You sit beside him, warm rock beneath you. The air rich with rosemary and salt. The goat appears, still holding its tiny banner. It headbutts your knee affectionately. You lean back, close your eyes, let the echoes ferment. The wine has spoken, and you, for once, have listened. The wind shifts again, brushing your face with a breeze that smells like thyme, warm stone, and the vague memory of someone laughing in another lifetime. You follow Dionysus down a narrow path lined with twisted olive trees. Their branches lean toward you like wise elders who know your whole story and are politely pretending not to. You ask where you're going. To a debate, Dionysus says. With who? A philosopher, he answers. And a barrel of wine. You don't ask for clarification. You've learned better by now. The grove opens into a circular clearing with stone benches arranged in the casual chaos of a philosophy forum. A few goats graze at the edge. One is wearing reading glasses. Another is deeply asleep with a scroll draped over its face. At the center of the circle sits a man in a loose himation, legs crossed, beard tangled, and brow furrowed in preemptive skepticism. You recognize the look. It's the expression of someone who doesn't believe in anything unless it can be footnoted and debated over 3 days. Next to him, opposite naturally, is a large oak barrel resting on a wooden platform, glinting faintly in the sun. There is a silver spigot in front. A cup sits beneath it, empty but expectant. Dionysus claps his hands. Friends, he calls. Welcome to the symposium of sips and scents. The philosopher Socrates probably, though he doesn't introduce himself, rubs his temples. The wine insisted on opening statements. Of course it did, Dionysus says, taking a seat. It aged for 20 years. It's earned the mic. The barrel groans softly, and wine pours into the cup with a quiet flourish. The cup tilts, lifts, and a voice emerges. Low, rich, and slightly fruity. I propose, the wine begins. That intoxication is not the abandonment of reason, but its loosening. A gift of perspective, not distraction. The philosopher snorts. Ah, and is your perspective consistent after 3 servings? Is yours? The wine counters. After 1 bad breakup? A few satyrs in the back snicker. The debate begins. Socrates insists on definitions. The wine responds with metaphors. Clarity, it says, is like tannins. Overdone, it dries the soul. Socrates accuses the wine of avoiding empirical evidence. The wine replies by making everyone feel something they hadn't processed since childhood. You sip from your own cup, just water this time, and watch the crowd. They're riveted. Some are scribbling. Some are openly weeping. One man is hugging his cup and muttering, I forgive you. Truth, the wine says, is not the absence of fog, but the ability to dance through it. Socrates opens his mouth, pauses, then closes it again. Dionysus claps slowly. A tie, he declares, as all great debates should end. Historians still argue whether the Greek symposium was a space of wild indulgence or serious discourse. Judging from this, it was both, and sometimes in the same sentence. As the crowd disperses, you linger near the barrel. The spigot drips slowly. It whispers, "Did I go too far with the fog line?" "Not at all," you say. "Good." It sighs. "Been aging that one for decades." You stroll with Dionysus back through the grove. A satyr walks past, muttering philosophical epithets in goat. You understand none of them, but you feel vaguely wiser. "So," you ask, "what happened to the barrel?" Dionysus grins. "It became a counselor. Semi-retired now. Mostly listens." You stop by a low wall shaded with grapevines. The grapes here are quiet, contemplative. You pluck one. Tastes like midnight and the echo of applause. "I thought wine was about forgetting," you say. Dionysus shakes his head. "That's what people want it to be. But it's not. It remembers everything, especially the things you're trying to outrun." You nod. You've seen it now, felt it. The swirl of old thoughts in a new cup. The weight of stories aged in silence, finally ready to pour. You sit on the wall and watch the sky shift. The clouds drift like amphorae adrift in the blue, each one carrying a toast someone forgot to say out loud. Dionysus hums beside you, a melody that goes in circles. The kind you'll hum again later and wonder where it came from. "I liked the barrel," you say. "Everyone does," he replies, "until it tells the truth." A bell rings in the distance, soft, metallic, like a fork tapped gently against a rim. "That's our next stop," Dionysus says. "The after party." You raise an eyebrow. "In the afterlife," he adds. "They really know how to pour over there." You stand. Your cup empties itself. Not because it's done, but because it's ready. And you are, once again, walking toward something you don't understand but already love. You walk along a ridge where the sea glints below like poured silver, the horizon smeared with soft peach light. Dionysus strides ahead, whistling something old and slightly off-key. His robe has picked up a few grape skins and a small vine has started curling around one ankle, but he doesn't seem to notice or care. You trail behind, shoes crunching on gravel, the breeze tugging at your sleeves. "We're close now," Dionysus calls over his shoulder. "The under-after, the one they don't tell you about." You blink. "The under what?" He turns and grins. "The after-party, after the afterlife. Once you've crossed the river, dodged a few judgmental judges, maybe played a flute solo for Persephone, then you get to where the real revelers go." You pause. "Are we dead?" Dionysus laughs. No, you're on the guest list." Big difference. Ahead, the path vanishes into a cave carved with ivy motifs and the occasional startled goat. The air grows cooler, scented with damp stone, and that distinct earthy sweetness of cellars and candle wax. You step inside. The darkness isn't frightening. It's soft, like velvet pressed against your thoughts. The sound of drums returns. Slow, pulsing, heart-like. And then laughter. Joyful, echoing through eternity. A door appears. Carved into its surface are dozens of names. Some in Greek, some in runes, some in languages that feel like dreams you've half forgotten. At the top, in deep crimson script, "To those who toast forever." Dionysus knocks twice. The door opens inward, revealing something impossible. It's a hall or a garden or both. Lanterns float overhead, casting golden light. Trees grow sideways and up again, their roots coiling around amphorae stuck halfway into the earth. Wine flows from small springs into shallow pools, and the pools hum softly, like lullabies with opinions. Figures move among the vines, some with masks, some with faces too bright to look at directly. You recognize none of them, and yet, every one of them feels familiar, like songs you loved but can't name. A satyr with a silver flute waves. A nymph balances 3 cups on her head while reciting epic poetry backward. A man made of carved clay dances with a woman made of smoke. The wine pours itself. The cups laugh gently when filled. This, Dionysus whispers, is the place where wine goes when it's remembered. where toasts echo long enough to grow roots. You step onto the moss-soft ground. It smells like saffron and almond and the hush that falls after a story ends, but before anyone says, "Tell another." A small group gathers around a stone plinth. On it stands a jug, not fancy, not decorated, just old and loved. It begins to speak. "I was poured at a wedding where no one danced until the grandmother wept." You pause. Another jug joins in. "I was poured by a boy too nervous to kiss the girl. She drank me and kissed him instead." A third voice, soft, dry, wistful. "I held a toast whispered at a grave. The one thing he never said out loud." You sit. Not because you're told to, but because your knees remember something your heart hasn't caught up to yet. Historians don't mention this part. They record libations, ceremonies, the clink of clay. But this place is where the wine remembers you. Dionysus sits beside you, arms wrapped around his knees, smiling quietly. "You think gods forget?" he says. "We don't. We just wait until you're ready to hear us again." In the center of the gathering, a cup floats upward, glowing faintly. "This one," someone says, "was the final sip before he left for war." Silence falls. Then a chorus of cups, all murmuring soft fragments. "She said yes. He never came back. They laughed so hard. They spilled me into the rug. They lied. They hoped. They healed." The chorus stills. You realize your cup has filled again. Slowly, without anyone touching it. You raise it gently, and you whisper something you've never said out loud. A truth. A toast. A memory. The cup drinks with you. You sit for a while, minutes, maybe centuries, as the under-after hums around you. No rush. No obligation. Just the quiet joy of being heard by something ancient and kind. Eventually, Dionysus taps your shoulder. "We should go." You rise. The moss sighs beneath your feet. At the door, you look back once. The room still glows. The jugs still murmur. And somewhere, a song begins again. Outside, the wind carries the scent of grapes and sandalwood. Dionysus looks up at the stars. "They're drunk," he says, smiling. "Always have been." You laugh, and the sky winks back. Back on the mortal side of the moonlight, the wind has changed its tune. It whistles a little now, like it's just remembered a joke from centuries ago and can't stop chuckling about it. You and Dionysus emerge from the cave feeling somehow cleaner, like you've just cried in a language you didn't know you spoke. The fields roll out before you, soft and sleepy, and for the first time in this very long, very strange night, you notice the sky has turned the color of cooled wine, deep bluish-purple, almost drinkable. Dionysus walks ahead with a slower step now. You get the sense that even gods get reflective, especially after visiting a place where memory has its own music. You catch up. He says nothing for a while. Then, "You know what's funny? Everyone thinks I'm just a party god." You glance at him. "I mean, I am," he adds with a grin. "But not just." He stops beside a gnarled tree and leans against it. They don't see the work behind it. The therapy, the unraveling. You pour a little wine. Someone laughs, then cries, then admits something they've carried for decades. And everyone thinks it was just a good time. He tosses a fig up into the air and lets it fall without catching it. "This next part," he says, "is where I almost turned mortal, just for a little while, just to see what it felt like." You follow him through a low orchard where the fruit hangs heavy and the leaves seem to sway in time with your breath. You spot a group up ahead, small, quiet, seated in a circle on woven mats. Each person holds a small clay bowl. This is different. No dancing, no singing, just sitting, listening. At the center is Dionysus again, or maybe a version of him, softer, robeless, wearing a simple tunic, no ivy crown. Just bare feet and a bowl of wine in his lap. You look at the Dionysus beside you. "That's the night I tried feelings," he says. In the circle, the other version speaks. Not loudly, not with flair, just gently. "Today I heard someone say my name and not mean chaos," he says. "It was strange. It made me want to sit." Someone else speaks next. A Maenad older than most. Her voice cracks when she says, I miss my brother. He used to drink from the same cup. I still pour too. Silence. The Dionysus beside you whispers. This was the first wine therapy session. Unofficially. Another voice. A satyr, all fidget and fur. I hate that people only like me when I'm funny. A third. A young mortal girl, maybe 16. I drank wine to feel less lonely, and now I'm just lonely with a headache. The circle nods. Dionysus, in the center, takes a long breath. Let's drink not to forget tonight, he says, but to witness. They raise their bowls. Not in a cheer, not in a celebration. In solidarity, they drink. And for a moment, the air stills. You and the present Dionysus sit down outside the circle. You don't interrupt. You just listen. Historians never wrote about this night. There were no scrolls, no records, no epic poems. Just a quiet orchard, and the god of wine trying to understand why people drank, not just how. After a while, the session ends. People hug. Some laugh, some cry. One satyr sniffs a peach and says it smells like his childhood. Another simply places their empty bowl beside a tree and walks away barefoot. The other Dionysus, the softer one, rises, takes a final sip, and fades into the wind like mist over a cup. You sit beside the present one. You felt all of that? You ask. He nods. It was exhausting. Did it help? I don't know, he says, but it made the wine quieter. For a little while, the two of you walk in silence for a long stretch. Eventually, he stops and offers you a new cup. This one is plain, uncarved. It smells like chamomile and unsent letters. You don't have to say anything, he says. Just drink it with me. You do. It's warm, gentle, honest, says nothing, but you hear everything. The orchard fades behind you, slowly swallowed by morning haze and the long, slow sigh of dawn rising over distant vineyards. You walk quietly, the scent of warm soil and crushed thyme accompanying each step like a friendly ghost. Dionysus says little now. He just walks beside you, one hand trailing through the tall grass, the other spinning a grape between his fingers like a coin that doesn't want to choose heads or tails. You follow a narrow footpath bordered by silent stone markers. No names, just symbols. A cup, a vine, a face half hidden by a mask. At first, it feels like a memorial walk. But then the breeze changes, bringing with it the scent of frost and something not unlike mint but sharper. Cold. Dionysus stops at the crest of a hill. Something went wrong here, he says. You both look down into a village nestled in a quiet valley. The fields are frosted over, though it's midsummer. The trees are bare. There's no smoke from chimneys, no voices, no movement. Just a soft, glimmering fog blanketing everything like spilled milk on a banquet table. He frowns. It was supposed to be a celebration, he says. A new vintage. First one grown under starlight instead of sun. People said it glowed in the bottle, that it could make you dream while you were awake. You both begin descending toward the village. The air grows colder. Your breath fogs in front of you. Too powerful, Dionysus mutters. Too early. I should have waited. You reach the square. In the center, a fountain frozen mid-flow, icicles curled like glass ribbons from the mouths of carved nymphs. Cups still sit on tables outside the tavern, each rim kissed with frost. One table has a spilled goblet, the wine still red, still liquid, yet surrounded by snow. You crouch beside it. It didn't stop pouring, Dionysus says, even when they begged it to. He kneels next to you, brushing snow from a nearby barrel. The surface is cracked, like it tried to burst from the inside. They called it nectar nocturne, said it made their dreams real. You rise. But it didn't stop at dreams. He nods. Some dreams are meant to stay dreams. You both step inside the tavern. It's quiet. Tables set, plates still holding crusts of bread, jars half drained. In the corner, a fireplace full of ash sits beneath a mural. A vine-wrapped chalice with stars spilling from it instead of wine. Dionysus touches the painting. This was the first place the fog whispered. You frown. Fog! He exhales, watching it cloud in front of him. The wine. It didn't just make dreams come alive. It invited them. Opened doors that weren't supposed to open. People didn't just see their desires, they became them. A man dreamed he could walk through walls, so he did and never came back. A woman dreamed she was a tree. She stopped speaking, then rooted to the spot. You glance outside. The fog moves strangely. It doesn't drift, it curls, like it's watching. They didn't want to leave the dreams, he says. They wanted to stay in the soft and the surreal. He reaches behind the bar and retrieves a single bottle. It glows faintly blue, as if it's storing the last light of the moon. The label is scratched, but you make out one word. Reverie. Dionysus uncorks it carefully. It releases a sigh. Immediately, the room warms. The fireplace flickers back to life for a heartbeat, casting golden light on the wooden walls. Outside, the fog stutters. For a second, you hear laughter, childlike and full. Then silence returns. Dionysus reseals the bottle and slips it into your hands. This is the last one, he says. It wants to be drunk, but not alone. You look at it. Feels heavy, like it contains someone else's memory. Or 100 of them. What happened to the villagers? You ask. They never left, he says. They're just dreaming. You look back at the square. You swear you see movement in one of the upper windows. A flicker of a curtain. Figure, maybe. Or a shadow remembering how to wave. Historians don't write about this village. There's no inscription. No myth. Only rumor. A place where the wine was too strong, too kind, too tempting. A cautionary tale without a moral, just a feeling. Dionysus touches your shoulder. I tried to fix it, but the fog's stubborn. You can't argue with desire. You both step back into the square. He raises a reed pipe and plays a soft tune, wistful, like a lullaby sung by someone too tired to finish. The fog stirs. A shutter swings open, then closes gently. The wind eases. For now, he says. As you leave the village, the bottle of reverie pulses faintly in your hand. What do I do with it? You ask. He looks ahead. Hold it, until the right person needs to remember. You climb the hill in silence. The frost fades. The fog stays behind. The sun peeks again over the vineyard edge like it wasn't entirely sure it was allowed to come back. You walk forward, now carrying more than a story. You're carrying a dream that didn't want to end. The frost fades behind you like a forgotten name, and warmth slowly returns to your limbs. The bottle of reverie tucked under your arm seems lighter now. Not in weight, but in urgency, like it's resting, not whispering. You and Dionysus walk through long rows of olive trees, their leaves rustling like old parchment, telling stories no one asked for, but everyone needs to hear eventually. He seems quiet today, not heavy, just still. You suspect even gods need a pause. Or maybe he's just letting the memories speak first. The sun is rising higher now, dappling the earth in golden fragments. A path curves ahead toward a small hillside estate. Vineyard, press house, terracotta roof. Peaceful. Too symmetrical to be ancient. Too warm to be abandoned. I tried rebranding here, Dionysus says. You raise an eyebrow. Rebranding. He nods. Went full vineyard mogul. Robe, sandals, business plan. I even had a logo. You squint. The entrance to the winery bears a circular plaque. A goblet wrapped in grapevines, with a faint smile carved just under the rim. Catchy, you say. Thank you, he says. I trademarked it. He leads you into the winery. Inside, the scent of pressed grapes and sun-warmed clay lingers in the air. Jars line the shelves, each labeled in careful Greek. Lucid Bloom, Whim's Whisper, Olive Branch Reserve. At a long cedar table, several people sit sipping quietly, each lost in their own heads. They don't speak, but the wine speaks for them. Dionysus whispers, "They came here hoping to find peace. I thought if I made wine predictable, I could keep it from going wild again." You walk past a glass carboy of amber liquid. A small tag dangles from its neck. Not for sad people. You peer at it. The liquid inside looks nervous. He continues, I thought if we gave the wine rules, if we told it where to flow, what to say, how to ferment, it would stay safe. Did it work? You ask. He walks over to a vat, pats it fondly. For a little while, you pass through another room, walls covered in framed parchment menus from tasting events, notes from guests scribbled on grape-leaf paper. Made me weep mid-sip. Would drink again. Reminded me of my ex, but in a helpful way. Uncorked my father issues. 5 stars. At the end of the hallway, a tall door stands slightly ajar. You push it open. Inside, a long table stretches down the center of a vaulted chamber. The walls are lined with amphorae, each sealed with red wax and marked with a single name. Dionysus steps in beside you. This, he says, was the cult. You glance at him. I didn't start it on purpose, he says. Just tried to give people a place to be vulnerable. Pour, sip, cry, repeat. He points to a jug labeled Eleni. Laughed until she forgot the ending. Another, Androcles didn't toast, just wept. And another, nearly crumbling at the edges, you. Eventually, you shiver. They believed each person had a wine made for them, Dionysus explains. One batch, one truth. If you found it, it would understand you completely. And if you didn't? You ask. You'd keep drinking, he says. Some people are still searching. Historians never wrote about this cult. Or if they did, the scrolls were sealed inside amphorae and never opened again. Maybe because no one wants to admit they prayed to something that smells like fruit and speaks in metaphors. Maybe because it worked. Dionysus picks up a small jug and uncorks it. The scent is warm cinnamon, fennel, old stories. This one, he says, was made for silence, for the people who never said what they meant. He pours a drop onto the stone floor. It evaporates with a sigh. I kept the cult quiet, he adds. Didn't want the Olympians getting nervous. You know how Zeus gets. You nod. You do know. Even secondhand, you know. You walk back into the main room where the newer wines rest. One is bubbling in its flask. Another has a tiny vine curling around its neck, cradling a flower. They're getting smarter again, Dionysus says, watching. It's inevitable. Is that bad? He shrugs. It just is. Wine wants to connect. The rest is a side effect. You exit the winery into a courtyard filled with sunlight and bees. Someone nearby plays a panpipe. A child carries a cup the size of their head and whispers to it like it's a best friend. The breeze brings the scent of rosemary, basil, lemon peel. Dionysus sits on a step, looking up at the sky. You know what I learned? He says. You wait. You can't tame memory, he murmurs. But you can invite it to sit with you. Pour it something sweet. Let it speak. You sit beside him. Share the step. Share the silence. The bottle of reverie shifts softly in your pack. It's not glowing. It's just waiting. And that somehow feels like trust. The late afternoon sun hangs low and buttery, its golden rays settling into the corners of the vineyard like cats who know they own the place. You and Dionysus rest in the shade of a cypress tree, surrounded by the gentle murmur of vines telling each other gossip they've carried for centuries. He's quiet again, not withdrawn, just content. The kind of quiet you only earn after enough laughter, enough memory, enough myth. You break the silence. Do you ever get tired of it all? The wine, the chaos, the storytelling jugs. He smiles. Sometimes. But then the grapes start talking again, and I remember why I stayed. You nod. The wind shifts, and then you hear it. A voice not spoken, not sung, but thought. It curls softly from your pack, where the last bottle of reverie rests. Dionysus leans over. It's ready. You slowly uncork the bottle. It doesn't hiss or sigh. It just breathes. A light, steady exhale. The scent is unmistakable: cypress bark, salt, lemon blossom, and wonder. You pour a small amount into the olive wood cup he hands you. It glows faintly, not with magic, with recognition. You sip, and suddenly you're not sitting beneath the tree anymore. You're standing in a place that isn't a place. It's a white room or a cloud or a dream. Soft, infinite, familiar. Floating before you is a single vine, coiling through the air, its leaves turning slowly, revealing scenes as they rotate. Each leaf is a memory, but not yours, someone else's. A boy hugging his mother beside a vineyard fence. A woman pouring wine into a fire and whispering a name. A man laughing so hard he chokes on a fig and gets married that same night. Leaf after leaf, moment after moment. Hundreds, thousands, people you've never met, but somehow you feel them. You feel seen. You hear a whisper, not from the vine, but from within. What would your leaf show? You pause, and slowly the vine turns one more time. It shows you, sitting under the tree, laughing with Dionysus, listening, really listening, holding the bottle like it's not just glass and cork, but a story waiting to be remembered. You breathe out, and you're back beneath the tree. Dionysus watches you, patient. You saw it? He asks. You nod. Then you felt it, he says. You don't ask what it is. You know now. The thread that binds it all together. Not just wine or myth or laughter, but the act of witnessing, of seeing someone, of being seen. You could stay, he says after a moment. Start your own vineyard. Raise listening grapes. Retire as the one mortal who poured stories instead of drinking them. It's tempting. The earth is warm. The air is wise. Even the bees seem to hum in your key. But you shake your head. I have things to remember, you say. Dionysus smiles, deeply now. Good answer, he says. You walk with him once more. Up the hill, past the temple ruins and the goat napping with a laurel crown still stuck to its horn. At the top of the ridge, the sky begins its grand finale. Violet melts into indigo. Stars peek out, blinking like Amphory trying to stay awake one more minute. Dionysus stops. This is as far as I go, he says. You look down the other side of the hill. It's your world again. Dirt roads, distant rooftops, olive trees that don't whisper, unless the wind gets very lucky. You turn back. He hands you the bottle of reverie. It's now fully silent. Cool. Complete. You'll know when someone needs it, he says. Just listen. You nod. Then, softly, you ask, what if the wine forgets? He looks at you with those ancient wine-dark eyes. It never does, he says. It just waits for someone to ask. You take one last look at him. The ivy in his hair. The grape stain on his sleeve. The god who taught wine how to feel. And then, slowly, you walk back into your own life. As you descend the hill, the wind carries his final words. Let the cup speak. You might be surprised by what it remembers. You walk the long, winding path down the hillside, the vineyard fading behind you like the echo of a song that never needed an ending. The sky is deep indigo now, stars scattered like spilled salt across a dark velvet table. Each one seems to wink at you. Not urgently, not mysteriously, just fondly. Your footsteps are quiet. The bottle of reverie nestled in your satchel is completely still. There's no magic humming, no ghostly murmur, just a soft, occasional clink as it shifts against your side, like a sleeping cat rearranging itself without waking up. And yet you feel it. Something inside it is listening, or maybe remembering. Ahead, the road flattens into a grove. Not a dramatic place, just a small stand of trees, fig and laurel and olive, all casting soft shadows under the moon. You pause beneath one, feeling the weight of your journey settle into your shoulders like a borrowed coat you're almost ready to return. You sit on a smooth stone and exhale. The night is quiet, just the faint chirp of insects, the breeze rustling the leaves, the soft creak of your satchel as you open it. You hold the bottle in your hands. There's no glow, no voice, just stillness. But you know what to do now. You pour a single sip into your wooden cup. The scent drifts upward, warm, old, kind. You raise it to your lips and pause. This time you're not drinking for joy, or escape, or even clarity. You're drinking to remember. The taste is soft, like someone smiling through tears. It blooms slowly. Notes of apple blossom, cinnamon, dusk. It doesn't whisper this time. It doesn't have to, because you know what it's saying. You close your eyes. You see the vineyard again, its vines curling like arms around forgotten thoughts, the talking goblet with its trust issues, the barrel that debated Socrates, the soft rebellion of wine that simply wanted to be understood. You see the playwright satyrs, the chorus of Amphory, the after-party for souls who couldn't quite leave, and Dionysus, wild and strange and heartbreakingly gentle, leading you through it all with a laugh that could unravel history. You sip again, and this time you see yourself, laughing, listening, holding the cup for someone else. Because the story wasn't just about wine becoming wise. It was about you learning how to listen. The last drop of reverie swirls in the bottom of the cup. You leave it there, not as an offering, not as a symbol, but as a promise. Behind you, the moon begins to set. Ahead of you, the path waits, quiet, real, yours. You rise, not hurried, not heavy, just ready. And as you walk into the soft glow of the coming morning, the vines rustle one last time. You can almost hear them say, "Thank you for drinking slowly."